This is Jack. He was in a band for 4 years and he made £50 by the end of it.
I did.
So I'm going to ask him some questions on the media industry. First of all, what's the best way to market your music?
The best way, there's a number of different ways you can market your music. A number of different ways. Obviously, we didn't market our music quite well enough because we only made £50 at the end of 4 years of hard work. But you can market your music in a number of ways. We attempted to do it using sites like Bandcamp, where you can kind of go on and buy music for, buy singles for quite a cheap amount, using YouTube, using Twitter, using Facebook. The main way we did it was to play loads and loads of gigs. So we toured pretty incessantly for about 3 years. So toured all over the UK and gained a little bit of a fan base, a bit of a following. We could guarantee, about 100 people at a gig, but wasn't enough to kind of make.
You also used like YouTube videos, didn't you?
We did use YouTube videos. Yeah, we did.
You got quite a hefty amount of followers.
We got like views of about 10,000, 15,000, which it's enough. It's like small scale success, but that's not enough to make money from. We had a following, but I mean that's one way of doing it, kind of creating new material, basically creating content. But that's one thing we weren't good enough at doing, was creating lots and lots of content. We actually laboured a bit when we actually came to the writing. It would take quite a long time for us to kind of write singles and EPs and albums. So rather than being able to release, like, look at this new clip or look at this new bit of music every week or every 2 weeks to keep people interested, it was more like releasing something every 2 or 3 months, which probably wasn't enough output.
Yeah. How would someone distribute an album, mixtape, songs successfully? Like, what's the usual step-by-step plan?
So you've got a number of options. You can either go through a record label and get a kind of distribution deal. If you get the record label, they take care of everything. So you get a distribution deal where they basically have a distributor and they will put your songs, your album out in most of the major kind of record label or record shops, like, well, there's not many record shops anymore, but HMV or FOP or wherever it be. Nowadays, you can actually distribute, because it's mainly MP3s rather than CDs or physical stuff. You can actually distribute yourself on iTunes. You can use those couple of sites. You can do all of the distribution yourself. So when we did it, we used a record label, but nowadays you can pretty much just do it yourself.
Yeah. And as you're saying, how easy is it to be signed to a record label and be found, or I don't know how it works at all, but how easy is it to be signed by a record label?
How easy is it? Well, we found it quite difficult.
How did they find you, or did you get someone?
Yeah, we did a number of things actually. We sent a bunch of emails to labels that we knew there were similar artists on, and the managers of those labels got back to us and said, yeah, like your stuff. So we signed 2 single deals to 2 kind of independent labels, and both of those were through approaching the guys and saying, could we release a single? And they were like, yeah, fine. But then it was very, very hands off. They'd just sign a bit, they'd give you a bit of paper, they'd sign it, and then you would supply them with the tracks, and it would all be taken care of. You'd supply them with kind of artwork, the tracks, and you wouldn't really have any contact with them. It's quite shady, really.
Yeah.
And they basically, the thing that they do is they distribute it. They give you a bunch of, they put forward like £1,000, £2,000 to actually press the vinyls and press the CDs, and then after that, you don't really see them again. So at the moment, I've got they eventually give you the vinyls. I've got maybe 200, 300 vinyls of our songs up in my attic. Yeah, because that's left over, and they'd say, right, well, there you go, that's yours. Try and sell it yourself at gigs. So then you take the vinyls around to gigs and try and sell them.
Yeah. Okay. What if you I don't know how much knowledge you have over the past 20 years, but How would you say the music industry has changed, for better or worse?
It's an interesting question. I think it's changed loads, obviously because of the internet. So the fact that you can pretty much get your hands on any kind of music that you want for free. Also, you've got streaming sites like Spotify, so you just pay like a premium amount, $10, £10, a kind of a month, and you can listen to all the music. You don't need to buy it. So that means that people don't actually want to buy albums. They don't want to buy the physical copy anymore. So it's changed in that respect. It does mean though that it's a bit of a leveler. It does mean that artists have are all starting at the same kind of platform. So if you're kind of entrepreneurial and you want to release your stuff, then it's kind of in your own hands. Like you don't have to rely on being picked up by a record label. You can just pretty much work it yourself on Twitter, on Facebook, on whatever it might be. Like, as long as you've got kind of social presence, you can make money yourself. You don't need a record label. But the problem is making money out of it, because obviously people just buy it or they just get it for free.
Yeah.
Thieves.
Anything else on the changes of
Um,
the industry?
Anything else on the changes?
Could you say that it was more nowadays? It's quite stereotypical to say that the big pop stars, like people like Lady Gaga and Miley Cyrus, are more about their image rather than the actual music.
Yeah, I think so.
Their view, like most people will hear, say Miley Cyrus and they won't talk about the music, they'll talk about some drama that's gone on recently, or the new kind of fashion she's wearing.
I think that is a kind of result of mass media, in a sense. So I think you always had those big stars, Elvis, the Beatles. They created, huge amounts of profit just based off of the kind of style and who they were, really, their identities. So there was that star power, 50 years ago. The difference though now, I think, is there's so many different streams for making money, and it's not necessarily just like the music, as you say. Like, you've got ringtones, you've got like, in fact, kind of personal appearances at various places. I mean, fashion and music have always kind of gone hand in hand, but I think, is it less about the music? It's a hard one to answer. Yeah, I don't know. I would say yes, a little bit.
Yeah.
Only because I hate Lady Gaga. So.
Yeah. Someone like me, I don't really know much about the music, but what is saying someone as a producer is quite a loose term. I've always thought of it as being the kind of man of the band who puts the music together, comes up with the beats and pushes it all together. I don't really know what is the actual definition of a producer? What they do?
So a producer can do a number of roles. It really depends on the band. So, for example, Rick Rubin is a really big producer, probably one of the biggest producers in the world. He's well known for, he's got a whole studio, he's got engineers running around the place. He's kind of responsible for just going, can you make, I like that sound, can you make it just a little bit more like Wales song, or make it a bit more like, so he's like, in a sense, like a creative director. He just sits back. Obviously, to get to that level, he's had to know, he knows a huge amount about sound design and production. But now he's got his studio, he just sits back and he lets the magic happen. It's almost like an artist living in, like a kind of an artist who's got engineers working for them. They have the ideas, they have the concepts, and then they let the kind of engineers do the work for them. On another kind of role that a producer has though is just making the music sound better. So the songwriters write the songs, that's what the band or the artist does, and then the producer comes in and says, how about we make it sound like this? Adding beats, adding textures, adding layers. So that's the role of the producer, to kind of make it sound delicious.
Yeah. You were saying earlier that in throughout 3 years of your kind of career, most of the time you were touring constantly. How important is touring
Yeah.
like a low key kind of unheard band?
You know what? It depends. Like I know there's a couple of artists that I know recently that have attempted to not tour at all, not to play any gigs, and have that kind of go with kind of enigmatic approach. So I don't know. Definitely one guy that's done that recently would be Jai Paul. You know Jai Paul?
Yeah.
Like he released like a track, a number like 3 or 4 years ago, which was a bit of, yeah, exactly, which was kind of like an underground hit, and it was sampled by some guys, and then after maybe 3 years he released another track which I think was Jasmine, and then there was this buzz about him but no one knew who he was. He was apparently working on an album but he hadn't performed anything. So in terms of touring, going back to your question, I mean he didn't tour at all, and yet he was really well known, and he was probably making quite a bit of money from the industry. But it depends on your approach. Like I know friends in a band, they've just recorded some stuff in LA, and they've been touring non-stop for 2 years, and that's their approach. They think, let's go around to all of the towns, all of the uni towns, let's keep on playing, and we'll just get a fan base. So how important is it? Depends on the type of music, depends on the kind of band you want to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, can be or cannot be really.
Certainly for most, like you were saying, like, a long time ago, people like Michael Jackson and Elvis, they all had a very kind of specific image which everyone would automatically refer them to. What do you think it's vital for kind of bands and solo pop artists to kind of have an image, either wear like a specific kind of line of clothing or have an attitude or a kind of face that they go by?
Absolutely. I think any band or any artist that attempts to be imageless will really struggle, unless there's one area where you can almost have no image, and that is if you are an electronic music artist. So if you're a producer or a DJ, I think you're able to kind of abstract yourself from that whole thing, and it's a bit more of a leveler. People know that you're the kind of producer. They know that you're spinning this. They know that you're there to kind of create a party.
Yeah.
I think if you're anything other than that, then you will fail if you don't have an image, whatever it may be.
Producing DJs almost fall under the same category as people they work with too.
Yes.
So like they would, if a producer, like a hip hop producer worked with a rapper or something, they would then be kind of assertive with them.
Well, that's the thing. So
the
artist in that respect, so the person that's got the lyrics, the kind of the front person does have to have an image. Do you know what I mean? But the person that's actually the producer, the person that's kind of spinning the kind of textures and the sounds behind that person, they don't need that. They're kind of seen as more of like a professional musician, rather than someone that's kind of selling an image or a brand.
Lastly, how does one get their music on the radio, and how is it? Do you think radio is something vital that new and upcoming artists would seek to try and find?
I think if you're trying to break into the mainstream kind of poppy, dancey culture, whatever, like I guess I would refer to that as kind of bubblegum, shite, BBC One stuff. Yeah. Then if you're into that, or you want to make a lot of money doing that, then you have to be on radio. You have to be on BBC One, Radio One. Like, so a couple of friends, in fact, they used to play in a funk band with, Clean Bandit.
Yeah.
So they've just blown up massively, like the past year. But we gigged with them a number of times, and they're doing really well. But the main reason they've done really well is because of the kind of BBC One, Radio One backing. So they really got in with those guys. They got in with a good management company, and they really plugged it. And they, as a result of that, have boomed. But if you want to do that, that's fine. You know what? You can be a successful musician, a successful artist outside of that sphere. Yeah. And I think a lot of artists now don't necessarily want to embrace that kind of thing. But if you want to make kind of big kind of BBC Radio 1 bucks, radio is key. In fact, my experience actually, we got on the radio when we played in our band, and the way we did it actually was we just paid someone. We paid And then that's how it works. So there's a plugger, a radio plugger, that you say, here's our CD, here's £100, or it might be a bit more, maybe £200, and then he would go and he would give your CD to the various DJs.
Yeah.
So there's, it's all about kind of who you know, who you're giving cash to, as most things are.
Okay, good. Thanks, yeah.
No worries, Felix, anytime.